Seenu, thank you so much for joining in for this.
Hi, Garima. How are you? Thank you for having
me. I'm very good. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about doing this. I think it's been a interesting journey for you. I was actually obviously going through your LinkedIn before we did this, and there's very interesting journey that you've taken before your. I think you did a master's first and then went on to do an MBA, switched multiple industries, multiple roles to land up where you are. So I think this is going to be a really interesting one for us to kind of discuss. First question to you, right? What has been the driving factor for what you've been doing in your life?
Okay. What usually happens, in India, I think maybe 20, 25 years ago, when you are in, 10th standard, 11th standard, 12th standard, you start thinking about, well, maybe you don't start thinking about, but people around you start thinking about what you should do, or, your parents, of course, will have a plan in mind and all that. And I've heard some other women from IIM also speaking about the same thing, that engineering and medicine were some of the two of the chosen fields at that time for students who are in STEM fields, students who have taken STEM in school. So I didn't want to do medicine because I didn't have a calling for that. And then engineering, of course, I liked it, and in fact, but I also had a creative bent of mind. So I wanted to go into a field which does not completely kill my creativity. So that's why I chose architecture. So while I was studying architecture, then I realized that, okay, but I also have some management skills. So now what do I do with that side of me? So I don't want to be in an industry where that gets killed. So let me try to do something where creativity is also there. At the same time, there is some application of management. So that's why I did my master's in construction management. I went to US because the industry is far more advanced over there in terms of construction methodology, processes, all of that. So that's why I chose to go to the US for advanced studies in construction management. Worked there for a few years. Then I started realizing that, okay, so these are things that you learn on the way, right? So these may not be things that you know upfront. This is all comes clear to me when I look back. So at that time, what also happened was that I felt, okay, now I'm in construction industry. What if something happens in the larger scale, something happens to the industry, and what if the industry collapses? So what do I do then? So then I'll be without a job. So let me look at some kind of experience or education that will give me a generic, let me go into something little bit more general, which can be applied to other industries. So that's when, and then I also thought that, if I have to grow higher up in the ladder and maybe take on more responsible roles or positions, and I need to have an MBA. So that was a thought behind going for management masters, because I thought, let me get an education which will equip me to transfer into different industries, just in case this industry collapses in future, or any industry collapses in future. MBA education is something that can be applied to any industry. So that was a thought of going for MBA. So while I was doing my MBA, so I decided to come back to India because I had already spent about 7 years in the US, and I thought, okay, this is the time to come back to India, because it was the whole India shining phase. This was in 2018, growing economy. So I already worked in an established economy. Now let me go and work in a growing economy, because the learnings there would be different, the culture would be different, the management problems that you would face would be different. So let's do that. So that's why I came to India, and IIMA, of course, was my first choice. And of course, I applied to other places, but it was my first choice. Thankfully got in there and had a wonderful time there. I would say it's probably one of the best experiences in my life, studying at IIMA, because of the methodology of teaching, your peer group, the kind of things that you can learn from other people over there, the professors, all of that was just wonderful. The campus, everything was great about IIMA. But one thing was that, when I came back to India again, I didn't want to work in the construction industry, because in the US I had already worked in construction, because the whole point of going for MBA was to see if I can switch industries, because can I use this degree to move into another industry and also function. because in the US, when I was working for the construction industry, I was doing construction management, largely a very operations driven role. And I was
Right.
posted on construction sites and all of that, managing
Right.
project schedules, contractors. So I wanted to move into a little bit more, managerial or marketing or strategic type of a role, and maybe a different industry. But what industry, I was not sure. So the 1 year that I spent at IIMA, did a lot of research, soul searching, speaking to other, friends and seniors who graduated from IIM and all of that, and I decided that maybe I would like working in media or automobile industry.
Got it.
But again, I was more bent towards the media industry. So and that's where I ended up. So I got a job with Pennsylvania, and I've been with them since. Yeah. So it's been now 2000. I graduated in 2010. So I'm still with them. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I mean, what I'm picking up a couple of themes, right? One, for example, what you mentioned in the beginning, that it was more an elimination process in terms of, I know I like this, but I wouldn't want to be stuck in a place where I don't get to use this skill set at all. And then you kind of went down that path, and then you realize, okay, maybe I need to add some more skill set, some more skills to this set that I have. Then it kind of took you another way. And then you kept kind of doing that in an iterative process, and then therefore landed where you're happy now. So it's not really an instant, I know exactly what I want. And then you kind of get there. Interesting. So if you were to point out maybe the top 3 inflection points for you, right? Could be personal, could be professional, that kind of made you think about these things, right? You mentioned that, for example, you decided architecture, right? What made you decide that architecture is the way that I want to express this creativity, as well as the sector I want to go into?
So choosing architecture because one, I liked at that time, so I don't do any more drawing anymore. So at that time I used to like drawing, painting, creativity, colors, working with colors.
Sorry, is that you in the background as well, the frame?
No, this is my apartment that I have designed. So
so the whole place is you, basically.
It's not so I like working with different colors and combination of colors and aesthetics and things like that. That was something that I always attracted to. Still I like doing that. So when I see 2 or 3 colors, how do you mix and match those colors, and depending upon the context, how do I apply these colors in a living environments? How do I apply those colors on the walls, and how do I do that on upholstery or on your furniture? But how do those colors look like on your clothes? They're all different combinations.
Very different.
So so that part I still like, and it's something that I really enjoy. So that was probably one of the things that attracted me to architecture, because when you go for the architecture entrance exam also, the examination itself is create a lot of puzzles, like visual and graphical puzzles and things like that. So I enjoyed that exam too. So that was one of the things. But maybe at that time when I was studying architecture, but I was not like a purist when it comes to being I'm not an artist, like I'm not a pure artist. But so it's not like I'm consumed by artistic things that there's no other space for me. It's in my mind, it's not like that. So I love math, and I love working with Excel sheets, numbers. So it's a combination of skills that I had, which I had to kind of mix and match and see where do I fit in correctly. So architecture, from there, because I realized that I had some skills in management, because I loved organizing things and getting things done and planning things, the whole process of making sure that things get done at a certain time within a certain budget, etc., etc. So those are managerial things, right? And I was an extrovert. I like meeting people and all of that. So that's why that was the inflection point. That was the second inflection point, while I was doing my final year of architecture. So I realized that I don't want to have like a pure architect profession. Let me find a profession where a little bit of managerial skills are also used. So construction management is kind of like was a good path, actually, because you're working in the construction industry where you get to use all these managerial skills, because you're managing contractors, but at the same time you're also interpreting plans to see how the rooms will look like. How does it, you have to visually imagine, what you see in the plan. How does it look like when it gets constructed? What is a three-dimensional look of the of what is drawn on paper, right? So all of that. So construction management was a good industry that way, which combined all of these skills together. Then, after working there for 4 or 5 years, I think every 5 years is when this realization happens, right? So after that, I realized, okay, now I'm like too stuck in a technical field. I probably need to kind of recession-proof myself with more skills or some kind of an upgraded education that will make me.
Was it linked to some external event? Just curiosity.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, you're right, because that's when the subprime mortgage crisis had hit the US, then Lehman Brothers crash and all of that happened. So you start reflecting on your own to see, are you safe? What if something happens like this to your industry? And so many people were laid off at that time, in various other industries. So that's when I started thinking, no, maybe it's time to upgrade myself so that you may not have to face this type of an issue that other people are going through, right? So that's when I moved into management. So once I came back, to India. So that I think I already mentioned why I came back to India, because it was first of all, it is your motherland. You've got to contribute something to your motherland also, like after doing all this education. So with times, one of the reasons why it was so interesting, the whole journey, was that every 2 years or every 3 years, I took up different roles. So that was one thing that Times was always encouraging, because you would have different opportunities that open up in different divisions, different departments, and different regions also, which if you think that your skills fit into any of those roles, you can of course apply. And if they think you are the right candidate, you will be given that position. So I had that opportunity. So I started in marketing, branding, then moved into sales, then in the line function, then then I moved into a little bit of strategy, staff function, line function. So I kept switching, and then I was head of division. So I was head of the head of Goa division, basically as a branch head over there. Then I was head of innovations, then I was head of exhibitions division, a lot of things. And then I also worked very closely with the president of sales. So that was more like a strategic function. So you will have a bird's eye view on the organization. But when you go into pure sales, then you have targets. It's a different insight that you get and different experience. So it's been very interesting. So Times also gave me the opportunity to keep experimenting with different things and also add on new things into my my resume. So those are the points.
I mean, that must have been really exciting. Like, I mean, even your journey at Times, even if you were to say conveniently forget that there was a whole experience in architecture and on the construction side as well, just your journey at Times has been so interesting. I mean, I was just going through everything. You started with, I think, brand marketing, moved into then media sales. Now I think you're doing a bit of CSR as well. I think you were involved in Teach India, innovations, all of that, like you mentioned.
Yes.
What has that experience been like? I'm sure obviously the general skill set obviously follows, right? Project management, being able to manage people, all of that. How did you make your decisions? Let me put it that way. How did you make your decisions in terms of why these roles?
Right. So I started as a brand manager for Teach India. So Teach India was a campaign that was launched by Times of India several years ago, more than 10 years ago. We launched this campaign. So I joined as brand manager for that campaign. What we were doing was that it had a little bit of social angle to it. Basically, what we were trying to do was we were trying to educate young people in the age group of 18 to 32 spoken English, right? And from economically backward classes. So we were trying to teach them spoken English so that they could be absorbed into any industry that requires spoken English as a medium, right? So that's where. So I worked with various NGOs at that time. At the same time, we also worked with volunteers, because the people who would go and teach English were actually the readers of Times of India. So it was a very interesting project to manage. So we did 3 or 4 cycles of that. And then I realized, okay, so now it's repetitive. So because we are doing cycles, it's the formula is set in place. And now it's a matter of just doing it every year, right? So then there's another opportunity that opened up in sales. So I was like, okay, I've now done sales before. But the opportunity sounded great. But that sales basically was that there was a new president who had joined Times of India, and I had to be working in very closely with him in his team, working on various sales strategies, analysis of performance, what products to launch where, what are some of the new campaigns we should launch, how do we enhance revenue, all of that. So that seemed quite interesting because that was something that I had not done before. So I applied for it, I got the job, really enjoyed that because it really gives you insight on how the top management views a business, right? And how they view business, how they take decisions, what is the company's vision? You work very closely with an organization's vision, right? And then how do you plan the targets? How do you achieve your targets? How do you manage various regions? So it was a national role and all of that. So it was very interesting. And then this other opportunity opened up, which is basically to head a branch. So then I thought, okay, this is something I've not done. I've never managed a branch on my own with 100% targets on me, and I have a team to manage. So because the previous role, I didn't have teams to manage. So I thought, this is a time that I need to probably start seeing how to manage a team. I need to develop that skill also. So that's how I applied for that job, and I got that. And I moved to Goa, and was just one of the best places to live in.
I'm sure.
It's a very, very nice place to live in. And we had a very small office, but of course we had our own Times of India edition there. So then you get to, that's when you become a branch head in sales, then you have to be in the field. You have to interact with clients. You have to understand what the client's requirements are, and how do you help them market their products. Because the role of Times of India, because as a media in sales, when media sales, when we talk about media sales, what we're talking about is we have a newspaper and we have various other allied products also. How do we use these products to help another client, market their brand? So like if you see advertisements in the paper, so that's all coming from the sales division. So you have to go meet clients and give them various propositions as to how they can advertise in the paper. What are the rates? What combinations you can take. Maybe you can take in Times of India. You can advertise in Economic Times, or you can try some of the languages. You can try various markets depending upon where their target audience rests or what their brand requirement is. So this is something, that's the lens that we have to look at from, right? How do I help another brand grow? So that thinking and all of that. So now it's all practical because you are out on the field speaking to clients, getting their ads in. So at the same time, you have a revenue target which you have to achieve, and you also have a team of salespeople that you have to mentor and lead, and also guide them into how to achieve the targets and all of that. So this is different hat you're wearing, but you also get a pulse of the market. How a client views you as a media. And how, what is your brand? How do you strengthen your brand? All of that. So all of that. So then I was like, okay, now enough of living in a small town. Let's move to a big town. Big city, because, larger roles. So if you have to take on larger roles, then you've got to move back to a bigger city. So I decided to move to Bombay because my previous roles I was in Delhi. So I thought, let me work in Bombay for some time. So there was again another opening in Bombay as head of innovations. So I moved to Bombay. So innovations basically is like, if you see any kind of, out of the box type of advertisement in the newspaper, that qualifies as an innovation. So let's see a scented newspaper, or you would see sampling attached to a newspaper, or you would see maybe, fluorescent colors, or, different formats, when it comes to the shades. All that comes under innovation. So those are propositions that we take to the clients to tell them that, hey, you want to stand out. Hey, do you want your ad to stand out? Then you may want to try out a different, a format innovation or something of that sort, which will really catch the eye of the reader. So that's something that I did in, looking after innovations. And then another opportunity came. So this is something that I did not chase, but that opportunity was just right there. And maybe the organization found me as the right fit to do that. And so I moved into exhibitions. I was heading exhibitions. So Times of India does a lot of on-ground events. So when I say exhibitions, it's like a Times property expo or at times educational
Right.
expo, or at times
Got it.
lifestyle expo, a lot of that. So we
Huh.
used to do a lot of ground events because that would be, so when a client is putting an ad in the newspaper, so they are getting some kind of response from the reader, right? But at the same time, what if you start providing them an on-ground event where they get to advertise their brand and all of that? Then they will really get in touch with their end consumer, right? So that's something, so additional something that we were providing, exhibitions and events and on-ground events. So both, if you look at ATL and BTL advertising of a client, so they would spend their BTL money they can spend in this type of activities,
Events,
which is basically events and exhibitions and all of that. So I did that for about a couple of years, and we did a lot of exhibitions. In fact, I think in a weekend we used to do some 7 or 8 exhibitions on a weekend. So all across India, I'm talking all across India. So I was the national head for exhibitions, and I had a team of about 15 people nationally. So we did many. We also did, for example, for Bombay, we had done the Mumbai International motor show. So if you remember, when I was doing my PGPX at IIM, one of the
you were looking at automobiles
was auto. So things come full circle. So I got to launch this big auto expo. So thanks to the great team that I worked with and all of that, so we were able to pull off a very good expo. And also the clients who participated and things like that. Then I decided to actually leave Times of India for a short while. So because I thought, let me try out another industry, but media only, but a different form of media, so cinema. So I worked for a short while for another organization, which is like Multiplex owner.
Yeah, Carnival is pretty big now as well. Right?
Yeah,
big they are. Multiplex.
So I worked Multiplex. So I worked as a sales and marketing head for Carnival Cinemas for a short period. But Times always, I always had that bond with Times, so I came back here. So this time when I came back, so I worked as the head of CSR. Now, when we are talking about CSR, but this CSR is actually a part of our sales division only.
Correct.
So which basically means that there are other organizations who would be having CSR funds, and at that time there was a new law that came out, which talked about companies spending 2% of. I'm not sure if it is a law or if it is what it is, but there was
there's some but I know what you mean.
That 2% of their spends had to be spent on socially responsible activities. So we, as a media organization, we would provide them solutions as to how you can spend that 2% money in CSR activities. Because we have a network, so because we all have a network of NGOs who work with us, we have project managers and various other vendors and agencies who can execute these projects. So we came in as a CSR execution partner. So that's basically one. So again, for us, it is revenue because we would execute these projects for the companies, but at the same time, we would charge like a project management fee or something. We would also help advertise their CSR projects in the paper so that they can talk about what they've done. And it would also be content to our readers, So if a company is doing great work, socially responsible great work, so we would feature that in our paper. So that will become content for our readers. And if anybody wants to associate with that kind of projects, we would also give them that opportunity for our readers to go and work on those CSR projects. So that's what I did for about a year and a half, I think. Then the next opportunity came up, which again, a new president for the sales division joined. So what I had done 10 years back, so I got an opportunity to do that again. Now again, working very closely with the president in strategy and a lot of analysis and looking at numbers. So now it is more. So now I don't have like a revenue target on me, but I'm more of more of an analytical function, analytical and reporting and all of that. So that's the kind of profile that I'm handling. So I've come full circle now. With Times, and it's been a wonderful journey because of so many experiences. I was just listening and kind of so usually when you hear people talk about businesses and revenue streams, you don't always hear a lot of talk around media sales, right? There's always for example, out of IIMA, I went to work with this company called AB InBev. It's a beverage company that sells beer brands, Budweiser, Corona, all of that. So for me, when you were talking about media sales, I was obviously correlating to
beverage sales basically work in the same way. It's just that the product is different.
That's
And
right.
obviously the outcome is very different, and you're selling to different people. All of that is very, very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But at the core of it, the sales process essentially stays the same across industries. So
Yes, absolutely. Sales is
right.
sales at the end of the day. You have a product that you need to sell. There is another person who wants your product. How do you make sure that you are the right fit for somebody? So that is
Right.
sales.
Yeah. And the other thing that was really jumping out at me was, I mean, I've always obviously heard of Teach India, right? I just think everybody has in the country. But I now, there's this, so with my startup as well, for example, we're trying to do this whole thing with community, right? Bringing people together, getting them to kind of interact off of each other has become this new buzzword also, right? That you want to bring groups of people together. You have a Instagram family. It's not just people who are your customers, all of that,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
But it seems like even without obviously having things like the internet or like WhatsApp groups or whatever, kind of what you were doing with Teach India and all of these CSR programs was, in a way, your readership essentially is that audience that also helps with volunteering, that also helps with, it's a little bit of a
yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting that you connect. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
please. Go
Please
for it.
complete your thought, and then I'll
No, I love excited cutting off. It's a great vibe.
Sorry. You mentioned Instagram, because when Teach India, when we started Teach India, this was not the time. There was no Instagram. Of course, Facebook was there, but Instagram was not there, and we had never thought of like creating communities on the digital platform. But yes, we were creating communities, which was basically our readers were our communities, right? And all of these that we were doing. So you have a cause. How do you get people to come together, work around a certain cause? And how do you make people feel that you're part of a family, you're part of a community, all of that? So that's what we were doing with Teach India. So even with CSR also, that is what essentially that's what we were doing. But so now we also have added the digital element. So whenever we are doing an event, so now I'm not handling events anymore, but the organization as a whole. When you do events, you always have like a digital arm attached to it, because you would have now a lot of the events, during COVID, many of these events have also gone virtual.
Correct.
So people have become familiar. We are doing this, virtual meet. Zoom has been used quite a bit, and all of that. So digital platforms are also popped up really well, and even creating communities around digital platforms, that is also working well, and people have adapted to that form of life. So things are changing. So it's a very interesting time. So print is also there, digital is also coming in. So you have to marry the two together.
Yeah. No, I think I just find it really fascinating. Also, the fact that I think a lot of, like you kept saying right now, right, that I've come full circle. It's also a lot of business models that feel okay. This is traditional and this is modern, but essentially it's just a spin on an existing model, right? Essentially, what you're doing with any business is you have to have an audience. And how you engage that audience is a function of whatever medium is available to you. In this case, of course, the medium was also the product, which is the newspaper. But
absolutely.
In essence, it is the same thing.
Yes, but so here's the other thing, though. So when it comes to newspapers, right? So in newspaper, there is always a trust, inbuilt trust that comes with a newspaper. So because it's an established brand, it's been around more than 185 years, and plus you see something in a newspaper as opposed to something like a WhatsApp forward. Somebody forwards something to your WhatsApp. You don't know, is it fake news? Is this real? Am I reading the right thing? You don't know. You doubt the veracity of something that comes to you as a forward, right? But when it's on the printed newspaper, you rarely question it. Is it right or wrong? So that's the brand promise that comes with a printed newspaper. The same would apply. So that's the content. I'm talking about the content part. It's the same logic that will come when an advertisement is seen in the newspaper. So let's say a brand takes a large advertisement, or whether it's a small advertisement that comes in the paper. Of course, you would say, oh yeah, I saw it in the paper. So that adds gravitas to your advertisement. So that's one of the strengths that we, of course, when we go to a client, I'm in media sales, when we go to clients, what we always talk about is the strength of the brand, like how long we've been around and how long we have stood for, what do you call,
all
the
of the
real
brand
you,
values. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
the brand values, that what do we stand for. So you as a brand, you associate with Times of India as a brand. What is it that your brand delivers to your customer? What is the message you are trying to deliver to your customer when you are seen in this platform, right? So that's why it is important for you to have your advertisement in our paper.
Yeah.
So people remember something that you see in the newspaper, because digital, I'm only talking about WhatsApp at the moment.
Right.
I'm not talking about any other digital, because there are various
Of
elements of
course.
digital that we're talking about.
Right.
Something, because you read, so much of, you're just bombarded with so much of WhatsApp forwards in a day, so many forwards, images that keeps coming to you. You may or may not remember what you have seen there, right? But newspaper, of course, you will remember.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning, that's a habit. You first thing, usually when do people read news? I'm talking about the physical paper product.
Yeah.
When you have your cup of tea, or coffee, whatever, you pick up the paper and you read, and you have full 15 to 20 minutes of concentrated time with the paper
Yeah.
and the brand. So you're not multitasking, you're just reading
Focusing.
the paper. So that's
No, absolutely.
that really helps brands to advertise in the paper. Yeah.
No, it's very interesting that you talk about that, because a constant struggle now, I think, at least I have as a digital business that I'm trying to create, is that it's very difficult to create new habits, right?
Yeah.
And this is one example that we look at always in the team, that reading the newspaper in the morning is a habit which is so hard to emulate for anything else as well, right? You have these habits that get created, and if you remove the newspaper, it's very difficult to actually do it on an iPad or a Kindle or the phone as well, right? It's a very physical act of going through that newspaper. So I mean, it's just one of those things that, I mean, clicked in my mind, that it is essentially everybody's trying to become that newspaper, create that newspaper habit with any product that they're trying to build.
That's true.
Yeah.
But there are, but it is also interesting that there are many brands actually who are digital first, right? So you got to give credit to those brands also, like the ones who are digital first, but they have become so huge, and essentially they've become unicorns also. And in fact, after that, they have gone offline. So they started as a digital brand, but then they have now started, their offline stores or centers or whatever. So that's also an interesting model. Who would have known that would have worked, and maybe they would have known that it would work over a period of time. So these are all interesting combinations, digital first or print first, whatever.
Yeah. No, makes a lot of sense. I feel, but yeah, I mean, we can keep going on and on about this, but back to what we have to cover as part of the podcast as well. I'd love to also hear about your time at IIMA. Like, what do you remember fondly now when you think about that time?
Oh yeah. It was just one of the best academic experiences, so intellectually fulfilling, because of the kind of, one is that we just have so much of like content that you have to consume, right, in a very short period of time. So you're like always racing against time to finish your reading, or whether it is your assignments or whatever. But that was the fun part of it. And of course, you also have, I really like the whole concept of groups, right? So, when you come in, you're part of a group or a cohort or whatever. I'm not sure if it is still followed.
Yeah.
But that was a wonderful thing. So you immediately feel that, okay, you are part of a family. We are talking about communities, right? So you immediately become part of a community, and then you have more opportunities to brainstorm one-on-one in a smaller group. So you get to learn from somebody else's experience. Like all the casework that we used to do as a group, someone would give, like someone from a finance background will bring in that finance lens. Someone with a marketing background will bring in that expertise. So it was so interesting to learn from each other also how somebody else would think, right? And of course, learn from each other. And I think the icing on the cake was the professors. I really enjoyed most of the professors over there. And it's just, the way they would approach cases, and the way they would make you think. And, some of the really funny exam papers, and, the pop quizzes, all of that. So everything was great. It was just amazing, one wonderful experience. It just, I don't know. I mean, I'm just so lucky to have gone through that 1 year of IIMA. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Now jumping back to your experience as well, right? You actually, I mean, again, I'm now cutting this from a different way. Now that you've seen a very, I'm guessing it's the same in the US as well, but you've seen a very male dominated industry, right?
Yeah.
The construction and
Yeah.
media usually, at least from my understanding, is a little more, let's say, balanced, right? That
Yeah.
you'll have
Yeah.
more female participation, may not be entirely 50-50, but compared to other industries, still a lot better, right?
Yeah.
What was that like navigating those two very, very different environments as a woman, if you put a gender lens on it?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, honestly, I haven't faced that much of a gender, what do you call, bias or any of that. Maybe I'm just lucky, or I don't know what it is, but it's just I haven't really had I've gone through that. What I've always felt that, you know, okay, yes, in the US probably there were sometimes I've been on projects where there were no women at all.
Right.
But maybe in the beginning they would be like, okay, what is she doing here? You know, my thinking maybe there, I'm not sure, but maybe they've not shown it to me, speaks for you, right? So I feel that, you know, the gender part just vanishes away, and what is it that you're doing? You know, what is your work, and what is your view, what is your opinion on things, how are you handling your work? So honestly, I feel maybe because I am like that, maybe I felt they have been treating me that way also. I think that's what should matter more. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, you know, in your work environment, all that matters is your experience and what you bring to the table, right? So maybe different genders bring different aspects to the table, and that's why a balanced team always is good, because you know, actually it is not balanced team in terms of gender. It should be balanced team in terms of
mindset,
experiences, also experiences. Correct. And what background.
Everything.
Maybe it's nice to have engineers, maybe it's nice to have people from commerce, economics,
right.
You know, art backgrounds, because you have different kind of thinking that will come into play. So yeah, so throughout, I think that's basically what I've experienced. It is just your work that over a period of time, it is your work ethic, how you approach your business, and how you handle your team, all of that. It's your personality and your in your work that matters in the long run. Gender, I'm not sure. I don't think it matters.
No, completely. I don't think so I think the way I was trying to ask that question was, did you notice any so one is just a obvious physical difference, right? That okay, I don't have as many women at the workplace, but also maybe in terms of, say, styles of working, or I'm sure like the way processes moved or whatever, maybe those are also different across industries. None of that.
No, not really. See, what happens, I'll tell you, Garima, is that, so let's say if you're looking at construction, so in a construction field, what is it that, you know, as a construction manager, what is it that you're supposed to do? So you have contractors that you have to make sure that, you know, they finish certain, because we have a project schedule in place, you know, certain work has to get completed before another piece of the work can start. You also have materials that you are probably importing from other countries, so you have to do material management, their billings and payments and all of that. Where is gender in that? Right? So maybe that's the reason why it never felt that way, because if you are doing the job, it doesn't matter whether it's a man who's doing the job or whether it's a woman doing the job. It's just a job, right? So maybe, yes, of course, you know, when you come to an environment where you see more women, now it's nice to see a lot of women, you know, around you. But when you start working, you know, it's just a work process, whether it is man or woman who's doing it. It's just a work process you have to follow wherever you are. Unless, of course, the job role requires a gender aspect to it. Then maybe, yes, maybe you will notice that more if the work has some aspect related to gender in it. But I have not worked in any of that jobs where, you know, only a woman can do, only a man can do type of a thing has a thing of that sort. That's my
no, that's amazing. No, that's a great way to put it as well, right? Like it's almost like a comeback, right? Whenever somebody asks you a kind of question where will you be able to handle it or whatever, like some people have that experience as well, right?
Yeah.
Say it's a job. What about it?
What
Does
about it? Yeah. There is man
allow
or
me
woman
to
written
handle
in
it?
that. It's just a job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, to kind of bring this to a close as well, right? What would your advice be to somebody who's setting out in their corporate career? Like, what would you advise them that this is the one thing you should do
Someone who is setting out, I'm sorry.
in their corporate career? Somebody who's just setting out to work.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Oh, many things. Okay. One is, of course, assuming that, since this is an IIMA conversation, so I'm going to assume that this would be, okay, two things. If you have an MBA, okay, so that my advice would be different. If you don't have an MBA, get an MBA because it's a really useful degree. So, so that would be the first advice. But those who have completed their MBAs in a corporate career, maybe you have to give yourself time to learn a lot of things. You may not have the answers to everything in the beginning of your career, or you may not be at the top of the ladder at the beginning of your career, right? It's a slow progression, or maybe it's a fast progression, I don't know, but it's a path, it's a journey to reach to a certain. You must enjoy that journey. You must not be focused only on, I have to be there and my pay package has to be this much as fast as possible. Don't think that way. You enjoy the process. Maybe you will have ups and downs. That's all part of the game, right? Ups and downs, both are part of the game. And because if things are doing well, great, then you have got experience. If things are going bad, then also great, because then also you're gaining experience of certain things that you shouldn't do. Or maybe you should have tried differently. Like, all of that is learning experience. So it all adds value to Workity. And be ready to experiment. So don't corner yourself into a box saying that, okay, I have an MBA, so I will do only these things, or maybe I will work only in this market, or only in this country, or in this region, or only in this industry. So don't box yourself that way. Just be ready to take on something different. A good opportunity comes your way, take it. Even if it is a challenging opportunity and you have no clue, take it up. Maybe you will enjoy it. You'll never know. You remember the Johari window that we have done?
Yeah.
So maybe when you try out a new path or a new, industry or a function or something, maybe there might be some hidden aspects in your personality that will become clear to you. So be ready to experiment a little bit. So I think that would be my advice. And on above all, have a lot of work-life balance. Have time for yourself. Have time for your family, your friends, your passions and your hobbies, because a job is a job, but life has a lot more to it. So you should have work-life balance also.
Oh my God, goosebumps. That was almost like you planned it without even knowing what question I'm going to ask. That was amazing.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's great advice.
Thanks for
that's
asking
great
me
advice
that
to live by. Thank you so much for doing this, Seenu. This was really,
Thanks
really fun.
Thanks a lot. It's been wonderful. In fact, I should also, compliment you for doing this program, because I was going through all the other interviews that you have done. You ask wonderful questions. You make the person feel free, at ease. It's a good time that you are giving us to sit and reflect on our journey and share it with other people. So I just feel, again, I feel part of a community of really talented women, and I'm so honored that you have considered me to be part of this conversation that you're organizing.
Not at all. So much to learn. So much to learn, and I'm sure everybody who watches this will have the same feeling as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.